The post-scarcity economy. All material needs met. No need to work, no poverty, money no longer the main motivator in society. Never need to get a job and get all the free stuff you want. Fantasy economy of teenagers everywhere who have yet to get a job. Too bad it's physically impossible in the finite entropy-laden universe we currently inhabit. Sorry kids, but it's a laws of physics thing and those laws can't be voted away. Not to worry though, there is a solution. It's called a post-satiation economy, and it can achieve all the benefits above within 2 generations using current technology without violating the laws of thermodynamics if you're willing to do 2 things. Make yourself capable and stop regarding money as evil. Hey everybody, I'm Robert Donovan. Welcome to this episode of Not Trekonomics. This video is a response and elaboration on a couple of ideas I saw in one of Isaac Arthur's videos on his Science and Futurism with Isaac Arthur YouTube channel. And the whole series is really awesome. But in the first video, he makes 4 points. And the first one of which was that post-scarcity is impossible in a finite universe in which entropy guarantees that nothing is 100% efficient, and therefore you have to speak in terms of relative abundance and relative scarcity rather than absolute post-scarcity. The second point he made was that attaining the benefits of post-scarcity does not require artificial intelligence or automation, though they would certainly help. We're going to look at that we're going to touch on that point in this video. The third point that he made, which we're also going to touch on in this video, is that getting to post-scarcity doesn't require the abolition of money. And finally, he points out that humans have been reducing scarcity and increasing abundance pretty much since the first humans picked up sticks to use as tools, figured out that hunting in groups enabled them to bring down bigger game, and certainly since we started using fire. It's all basically just using technology to make more stuff. Now, his masterful exploration of a post-scarcity society is based on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is a good choice, but he didn't look at specific economic or political systems in which such an economy might exist. One sentence, though, did strike me, and that is, it touched on the idea that one way to facilitate a post-scarcity society is for people to decide that they don't need to have the latest, shiniest toys. Now that touches on a central concept of this show, economic satiation or economic satiety, which the term I've been using. And I thought I might do a video exploring how we can use the concept of economic satiation to achieve the benefits of a post-scarcity / resource-based economy, but without having to wait for Star Trek level AI, replicators, and personal robotic assistants. Okay, the principle of economic satiation is that the more of a good, service, or commodity you acquire, the less additional utility you get as you acquire more of it. Economic satiation acknowledges that human wants are infinite in the aggregate, but not so much individually. Now, when I was a kid, I often heard this expressed when my mother and grandmother would say something like, "All I want is not to have to worry about where my bread and butter is coming from," meaning that so long as their basic survival needs and basic creature comforts were covered reliably, with maybe a few friends to talk to and an occasional interesting challenge or activity to do once in a while, the other luxuries would be nice, but not essential to their happiness. Now maybe I'm generalizing, but I think most people probably feel that driving 5 miles to the grocery store in a Kia hatchback adds a lot of utility over walking. No cracks about a Kia hatchback. But driving 5 miles to that same store in a Ferrari probably doesn't add enough additional utility to be worth the extra cost in terms of covering your basic material needs of going to the grocery store for most people. Similarly, a person making 250 times the median income doesn't have a lifestyle necessarily 250 times better than a person making the median income or less. What the person making 250 times the median income would have, though, is greater security against unexpected future expenses. Now, even that security would have a satiation point, though. I'm sure we've all heard the phrase to the effect, "We couldn't spend that in 10 lifetimes," or something similar. Now, what you could spend in 10 lifetimes is, of course, a function of your average daily living expenses, which is a function of your chosen level of acquisitive satisfaction, both of which you have, if not complete control over, at least many degrees of freedom. The point of satiation will, of course, vary from person to person. Depending on their values, one person may be entirely happy in a 250 square foot house on a couple of acres of land, living on $35K a year, so long as he has no debt and can comfortably cover the bills until he dies. Another person, on the other hand, might want a mansion by the lake with a helicopter pad on the front lawn and a private pier to dock the yacht and the seaplane. Well, so long as that choice is left up to each individual and each person does all they agree to do, encroaches on no one else's person or property, and pulls their own weight first when acquiring these possessions, one's preferred level of economic satiation is nobody's business but theirs. So how does this concept help us? We'll start with that list of post-scarcity benefits. All material needs met, no need to work, huge abundance, greatly reduced, or no poverty. Money no longer the driving motivator in society. First, I call to your attention the fact that you do not need equality of outcome for any of those to be true, thanks to post-satiation. Moving on. Let's look at all material needs met. For this, I'm going to use Maslow's hierarchy of needs, or Maslow's, I'm not sure of the exact pronunciation there. And for this one, I'm going to go with the bottom two tiers of Maslow's hierarchy, and that is those are the physiological, which are your basic survival needs like breathing, food, clothes, sex, sleep, homeostasis, and excretion, clean place too, I guess, and safety. These would be the basic comforts you worry about once you're not worried about dying tomorrow and covering the bottom tier needs, and those would be security of body, health, resources, employment, morality, family, and property. Those would be, we'll call those your subsistence needs, the two tiers together. Now in the US, we're pretty good on basic survival. 99% of the poor in the US can take for granted access to clean running water, flush toilets, and electricity. Cornelius Vanderbilt in the 1800s, one of the richest men of his day, had none of these things. As far as the safety needs, first off, for employment, I'm going to substitute income because let's face it, that's the main reason you get a job. We just are forced to spend a lot of time denying it at job interviews. But regarding the safety needs, poverty in the US is considered middle income in all but a couple of OECD countries. I think it's Norway and Switzerland are the only two that have got a higher median income than we do. So if your income is high enough to get you all the stuff in the bottom two tiers without having to work, this is called financial independence. We'll call this post-subsistence in this context. This is not to be confused with being wealthy. The key to financial independence is not robots or AI or replicators. It's learning the skill of generating passive income. One of the big gripes I have about the resource-based economy crowd is that they make no distinction and they don't really seem to understand that there's such a thing as income in kind versus income in cash. And a resource-based economy just switches to income in kind. Hate to say it. Post-subsistence is the gateway to post-satiation. Think of it as the Occam's razor of post-scarcity economic models. It's the easiest way to get there without adding unnecessary entities like the RBE crowd does. The process of attaining post-subsistence can be started by any individual for the cost of eating out a couple of times a week, and I have a video where I show you how to do it if you can save $1 a day to get started. And at the top end, it can be tailored to the individual's personal tastes. It does require some personal initiative to get started, but time and compounding make it easier and easier the longer you go, and it certainly doesn't preclude the kind of cost and energy and space-efficient philosophies that you hear the RBE types going on about incessantly. Look at the tiny house community and you'll see that very philosophy in action. I would even say that the financial independence retire early communities, the tiny house and RV living communities, have rendered much of the thinking in the RBE community largely out of date. Most of the stuff Jacques Fresco came up with for his circular cities and his modular home resource-based economy ideas, they came out in the 1950s, well before we had the kind of personal productivity technology that we have today. And it's orders of magnitude greater than it was then. And not only that, but every post-scarcity plan I've ever seen, in contrast to the low starting costs of post-satiation, every post-scarcity plan I've ever seen assumes massive startup costs and takes the collective effort of many people just to get it going. I mean, they're asking investors, the largest of whom, by the way, already have everything a post-scarcity economy promises. They're asking them to put money into something that intends to do away with money, which pretty much guarantees they can expect not to get paid back for a very long time, if ever, I would think. Now that means that, in return for this, they're offered a one-size-fits-all communal living arrangement that subordinates individual preferences to the good of a group. Now, I don't care how pretty Jacques Fresco's renderings of circular cities and futuristic-looking modular homes in the forest are. Intelligent, capable, and creative people are not well suited to this environment. In fact, it's the kind of thing they usually rebel against once the novelty of it wears off. So we're at post-subsistence, and suppose we get to post-subsistence. How does that get us to post-satiation? Post-subsistence doesn't sound like anything more than scraping by. Well, let's assume that we get everybody to post-subsistence. Let's assume you have an account somewhere. Follow me with this. You have an account somewhere that you have been putting money into, it's been earning a return, and you look and you say, if you follow the 4% rule, we'll get into that in the next video, you follow the 4% rule, you will find that you have enough money to live on for the rest of your life and cover your current lifestyle, your current subsistence needs. Maybe not everything, but your current subsistence needs. We'll cover how to get there in the next episode, and as well as how government gets in the way of doing this. But stop just right there. You've discovered you don't have to work anymore. How would it feel just to know you didn't have to constantly chase money just to keep a roof over your head or food on the table? Let's say you've got a job and you're not happy with your current lifestyle. Well, since you can live off the income from your post-subsistence account, you could put all the income from your job into your post-subsistence account and buy yourself a raise every year until you reach post-satiation. And how would you know you're at post-satiation? Well, you'll be working, you'll look at all the stuff you've got, you'll say, hey, I've got what I want, I've got everything I need, I'm content, and I'm kind of tired of work. Working more won't get me any more that I don't already have, and that will be the time you decide you're going to quit working. That's post-satiation. Now, once you hit that post-subsistence, post-satiation spectrum, and you're moving along it, how long would it be before things other than money, like travel, time with family or friends, or pursuing more fulfilling hobbies or careers, became more important to you than simply earning more money? Bingo. Money no longer the driving force, no longer the main motivator. Right? It's not that money would become unimportant, of course. It's just no longer the biggest priority, not the driving force. Now, the money in these accounts that I'm talking about would, of course, be not just sitting idle. It would be invested in real businesses, providing ongoing debt-free economic stimulus to fuel greater abundance. So there's your abundance right there. The accounts could also be passed on to your heirs, meaning each succeeding generation has the chance to start with a bigger nest egg than you did. No more poverty. The post-scarcity crowd, to their great misfortune, in my opinion, tends to have the view of a spoiled adolescent or a self-hating trust fund baby when it comes to money. The critical shift in mental paradigm between post-scarcity fantasy in the far-off future and post-satiation in a couple of decades is to stop regarding money as evil and look at it for what it is, a tool to facilitate the creation and distribution of goods and services through trade. Jean-Luc Picard can pontificate pedantically about maturing out of our infancy all he wants, and all he's doing is expressing his ignorance about money, or at least the ignorance about money of the TNG writers, as far as I'm concerned. People who know how to use money make every dollar work for them every bit as hard and tirelessly as any robot, and they make it self-replicate. It's called compounding. Money and free markets could get us to what most would regard as post-scarcity in a couple of generations or less without requiring zero scarcity, equality of outcome, or for individuals to focus on society's needs before their own, which, I hasten to add, is baked into a lot of thinking found on sites like the Venus and Auravana projects, along with a heavy dose of the kind of economic central planning that has led to some of the highest body counts in history outside of war. With robots and AIs doing it dispassionately, unlike politicians, I will not say that that's destined to happen if you do this with robots, but you can't rule it out even if you do, and you don't need to. So, using money, the very thing that Jacques Fresco, Gene Roddenberry, and the Star Trek writers love to vilify so much, we have created a path to meet all material needs without having to work, eliminate or greatly reduce poverty, and make money no longer the primary driving force in society. We've done it entirely using existing technology and at very low startup costs, particularly compared to the proposed costs of even a small-scale Venus project or a modest universal basic income approach. Stir that into your tea Earl Grey hot and drink it, Mr. Picard. So thanks a lot for watching. Please do comment, like, and subscribe. It really does help when you do that. And may the balance of your day be awesome.